Well, hello once again, and thank you for joining me on the Waters and Stanton video channel. Video this time is about a story, a bit of history really, a bit of ham radio history. Martin K5FLU, the founder of MFJ Enterprises. I've known Martin for many years, and in fact I think it's true to say that we were the first company to import MFJ products. You know, our companies were in parallel really in some ways. I mean, we can't compare, Waters and Stanton can't compare with Martin's MFJ Enterprises, enormous great company. But we started our business around about the same time. Martin started his business in October 1972 and I started Waters and Stanton in September 1973, so his business is a bit older than ours. But Martin's actually 1 year younger than me. He was born in February 1944 and I was born in February 1943. And I think we've got a lot in common really in certain respects. I spent many hours talking to Martin, and I think I went to Dayton something like 26 times, and every time I went to Dayton, not only did I go to Martin's stand and have a chat with him, and he always had some freebies. Very often it was a bottle of whiskey, and we always made a point of going out one of the evenings for a meal with him and some of the other guys there at MFJ. Very enjoyable evenings. Very lively, a lot of laughter, and sometimes quite a lot of alcohol. Sometimes alcohol seemed to creep into my glass that I hadn't bargained for, but Martin insisted I tried it. But during those evenings, we used to chat about all sorts of things, mainly radio, but you got to know the person. You got behind the person that you saw during the day at Dayton or the one you corresponded with. Martin once said to me, he said, "Peter," he said, "you're my brother across the pond." I think he said that because we got on very well together and we had some parallels. Of a similar age, of course, started the companies at the same time. But I was proud that we were right in there at the beginning to bring MFJ's first product, the MFJ CW2, CW filter. You know, in those days, it was very difficult to get products. I started Waters and Stanton, and we actually were selling hi-fi or ham radio, and it was very difficult to get hold of ham radio. Low Electronics wouldn't supply us. Western Electronics wouldn't supply us. SMC wouldn't supply us. So we were left with trying to get accessories, and so hence I contacted MFJ. They were tough times. Do you know, Low Electronics even banned us from offering a discount. We waited a long time to be able to get the Trio products, now known as Kenwood, and Bandit Bill said, "Well, we'll supply you, but you mustn't discount and you mustn't even give free carriage." And I remember sitting around the table there and saying, okay, I'm going to keep nodding and saying yes, because I want those products. So at the end of the, I think it was a lunch we had, at the end of the lunch, Bill said, "Okay, we'll supply you. You've agreed not to discount and you've agreed not to give free carriage." And he went off. I think he flew down actually. He flew back. I remember turning to Jeff and looking at him and said, "We've got Kenwood or we've got Trio. Discounts? No discounts? No free carriage?" Stuff that. We will do our own thing. And anyway, he won't know what price we charge the customers and whether we give free carriage. And that's really how we got Trio actually, or it's now known as Kenwood. Anyway, back to the real story. Martin is a clever guy. He's not only technically very clever, but he's also an astute businessman. And that's how he built his company up. He was very astute. He was very clever. He had a massive catalogue of products, probably the greatest range of ham radio products that will ever come out of one factory. Excuse me a second, phone call. Sorry about that. Yes, very clever man, and he purchased a number of companies during the time that MFJ were trading, because MFJ still are trading, I believe, in a small way. Martin is still working there. I think they've got still got supplies of some products, and I guess they've got a lot of components that they're getting rid of. But anyway, in their heyday, they were the largest manufacturer of ham radio products in terms of the number of products they manufactured, and I don't think we will ever see that again. I don't think we will see the likes of MFJ ever being repeated. It was a time, it was a heyday when ham radio operators wanted to buy all sorts of accessories, and the only accessories that did certain things came from MFJ, because MFJ invented them. I mean, the antenna analyzer, that was an MFJ product. I remember Martin coming along and showing me this MFJ analyzer, and he said, "What do you think?" I said, "Well, it's a good idea." And it was a good idea, but I never thought that we would sell as many as we did. MFJ antenna analyzer, that was an original idea by Martin, and gosh, we sold loads and loads of those. Of course, the product was copied and refined by the companies in later years, but Martin had a clear field for about 10 or 15 years with the MFJ antenna analyzer. It's interesting how Martin started business back in 1972. I think it was in 1974 that I spotted this MFJ CWF2. I hope I've got the model number right. I think I have. If I haven't, I'll correct it below this video. And I was trying to find products that we could sell, because we weren't able to get mainline products at that time. And I spotted this, and I got in touch with MFJ Enterprises. And of course, you've got no idea how big the company is, have you? You see the advert in QST, MFJ Enterprises making this filter. I thought, right, I'll contact them. And they agreed to supply me. Well, the interesting thing was that this product arrived, each product was individually wrapped. It was individually wrapped in the copies of the Starkville Times, the local newspaper. I think I've got the title right. Starkville, anyway. Starkville Times. It was the local newspaper. And each product was carefully wrapped in a page from this newspaper. And I found it fascinating, because we didn't have the internet then. So I was actually seeing information, what was happening locally in Starkville, by virtue of reading the pages. And as I unwrapped these products, I used to carefully lay these pages out and then take them home and read about what was happening in Starkville. I think I knew more about Starkville than anybody else in the UK, I think. But the CWF2 was a little CW filter. You put it in between the headphones and the headphone socket, and it passed a very narrow audio filter. There was a very narrow bandpass audio filter. I think the narrowest was about 100 hertz, something like that. The idea being that if you pass the audio, this is primarily for CW, if you pass the audio through a narrow audio filter, you blotted out a lot of the other interference. So it was very good. It was very effective, actually. I think there's one position which would pass SSB, so it would work on SSB, but primarily it was designed for CW. What I didn't know was how it was manufactured. And Martin was lecturing in a local college, and he was teaching students about electronics. And one of the things these students had to do was they had to make an item of electronics that worked. And Martin, being a ham radio operator, decided that this CWF2, or CW filter, would be just the product to make. It was quite simple to make, and it was useful. And these students made these boards up. And then Martin thought, well, they might as well put them in a box and make them look nice. So these students would then put these filters into a box and make them look nice. And then Martin thought, well, wait a minute. They don't need these filters. They're no good. They're students, but they're not interested in ham radio, really. They're just interested in the course they're doing. So he decided to sell them. And that's how MFJ started. Each term, the students would have to make a CWF2 and test it out to make sure it worked, and then put it in a nice box. And Martin would then say, "Okay, well done guys, you've done very well." And he would take these home and he would wrap them up in the Starkville Times. And when he exported them, we got them wrapped in the Starkville Times. And that's really how MFJ started. And that gives you a clue as to how astute Martin is. He's not only a clever guy in terms of thinking up all these wonderful products, because most of the products were from his brain. He manufactured some of them, but I think in later time he just thought up an idea and the guys then had to design a product to do what he thought was a good idea. And so the MFJ Enterprises started, the production line started with students who had no idea that they were working on a production line. As far as they were concerned, they were doing a construction project that they had to do in order to pass whatever tests or whatever course they were on. So there we are. That's the story of Martin K5FLU. Martin, if you're watching this video, many thanks. You're a great friend. We've known each other for many years. We had a lot of fun, and the number of times I've flown across the Atlantic thinking, I'm going to see Martin again, we're going to have a laugh, we're going to have a few beers, and we're going to exchange a few stories. There we are. That's Martin K5FLU of MFJ Enterprises. Hope you found that story interesting. Thank you for your support on this channel. It's much appreciated. As usual, don't forget to press the subscribe button. In the meantime, you have fun with ham radio. Look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye for now.